Chivalry. It's one of those words, isn't it? Kind of instantly brings images to mind. Maybe that knight on a horse, or, maybe that whole debate about opening doors for women. Is it charming or just outdated?
Yeah, it definitely sparks discussion.
And you listening have likely bumped into it. Maybe you've got your own story or, well, an opinion forming right now.
I'm sure.
Well, today we're going to dive deep into this idea that just seems to stick around.
Right.
Our goal really is to unpack its history, where it came from, and then sort of wrestle with what it means now in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Is it just a nice gesture from the past? Is it maybe a subtle kind of sexism we should leave behind? Or is there, something more complex going on?
It's fascinating because these actions, they seem simple on the surface, don't they?
They do.
But they can reflect these really deep societal things. It's more than pulling out a chair, like you said.
Sure.
It touches on centuries of how relationships have changed, how we see each other. And the material we're exploring today, it really maps out that journey. Shows how these medieval knight ideals still pop up, sometimes pretty controversially, in how we interact now.
Okay, right. So let's go back then, way back. When we hear chivalry, yeah, we think knights in armor. What were the absolute core ideas they were supposed to follow?
Well, the exploration we've got reminds us that chivalry was essentially, the knight's code in the Middle Ages. And it wasn't just about being good in a fight. It covered key things like bravery, a real strong sense of honor, and crucially, this very particular kind of respect aimed at women.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for me. The material points out this historical view often showed women as, well, delicate beings needing protection, that classic damsel in distress thing.
Exactly.
What was behind that? What led to that specific picture?
Well, if you look at the wider context, feudal society, right?
Yeah.
A picture starts to form. The power structures back then, they often put men in charge, responsible for safety, security. So this setup, this societal structure, more than maybe inherent qualities, often positioned women as, well, more vulnerable, needing male protection.
Ah, okay. So it was the structure itself.
Yeah, it created this dynamic, men as protectors, women in that context as the protected. You have to think about the economic roles too. The social roles back then really reinforced that view.
Right, okay. That makes a lot of sense in that historical setting. Now, let's fast forward to today. We still see these kinds of actions, the ones we call chivalrous.
We do.
But the material we're looking at really hits home how differently people see them now. Can you sort of walk us through those clashing views?
Absolutely. So on one side, you've got the view that things like opening doors, maybe offering to pay on a date, giving up your seat, it's just good manners.
Simple courtesy.
Exactly. Basic politeness, thoughtfulness, no hidden meaning, no problematic intent, just being, a decent person.
But then, of course, there's the flip side, that other way of seeing those exact same actions, the one that says, hang on, this might be a problem.
Precisely. And the exploration we have details this critique that chivalry, performed like that, can actually feel patronizing.
Yeah.
It can reinforce old-fashioned ideas about gender.
How so?
Well, the core argument is if you automatically assume a woman needs help with something pretty basic, like opening a door, or needs, say, financial covering on a date,
Right.
you might, maybe, without meaning to, be implying she's less capable or less independent.
Ah, okay.
So this view sees those acts as kind of keeping alive this paternalistic idea where women are always sort of positioned as needing support from men.
Yeah, I can absolutely see how that could feel undermining, even if the person meant well. Like the door example seems polite, right?
Seems like it.
But the assumption underneath could feel like, oh, you can't manage this simple thing yourself.
Yeah.
So, okay, with these really different takes, where does that leave chivalry today? Is it even relevant? Is it just fading out?
Well, the material offers a pretty nuanced take here.
Yeah.
It notes that we do still see these gestures around us. People offer help, sometimes pay for others,
Yeah.
But the really big shift is in how we understand those actions.
Right.
They're getting looked at more and more through this lens of equality, not just simple respect.
So it's less about the actions vanishing
Right.
and more about the meaning we're attaching to them changing.
Exactly. It kind of brings up the question, is this act really about the person in front of me, or is it just driven by these old, ingrained ideas about gender roles?
Which ties into this growing feeling highlighted in the material that kindness, respect, it should go both ways, right? It shouldn't depend on someone's gender.
Precisely. We're seeing this shift towards a more, you could say, egalitarian approach. Anyone might offer kindness to anyone else.
Like what?
Anyone might offer kindness to anyone else. Like what? Well, for example, Well, you might see a woman offer to chip in for the bill, or really either person holding a door open for the other. It creates a more balanced social feel where kindness isn't tied to these outdated ideas about one gender being inherently stronger or needing help more.
And this flows right into the feminist perspective, doesn't it? The material we have makes it clear that for many feminists, chivalry isn't just old-fashioned. It can actually, like, prop up inequality. Why is that?
Yeah, as the exploration points out, a central feminist argument is that because chivalry grew out of traditional gender roles, it can reinforce this idea that women are, well, weaker or less competent. That feeling of being looked after, specifically because you're a woman, can, for some, feel a bit like being treated like a kid.
Infantilizing.
Yeah, like your own abilities are being overlooked just based on your gender. It's about pushing back against those underlying assumptions.
But it's also noted in the material, isn't it, that even within feminism, there isn't just one single monolithic view on every single act that might get labeled chivalrous.
That's a really key point, yes. Some feminist viewpoints draw a line between acts of kindness that come from a place of genuine mutual respect and equality.
Okay.
And those that feel like they're done out of obligation or expectation purely because of gender.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Like offering help to anyone who's obviously struggling with a heavy suitcase, that's one thing. Automatically assuming a woman needs help carrying, say, a relatively light bag just because she's a woman, that's different.
Got it.
It's the why behind the action that becomes really important.
So, okay, it feels like deciding if chivalry is dead isn't really a simple yes or no.
Not at all.
The material seems to suggest finding, like, a middle path. What does that actually look like day to day?
The exploration, I think wisely, points towards a space where the core values, kindness, respect, they're still absolutely vital.
Right.
But they need to be expressed in ways that fit with our modern ideas about equality. So while some old practices rooted in unequal power might not sit right anymore, the basic desire to treat others well, that's still crucial.
But the key is?
The key is that it should be mutual. It shouldn't be defined by gender roles.
Can you give us a couple of concrete examples? What might this balanced approach look like in action?
Yeah, sure. It could be, say, a man offering help to anyone nearby who looks like they need it, man or woman.
Okay.
Or maybe a woman proactively suggesting splitting a bill, just as a clear sign of equality in that situation. It's about the intention, really, and the sense of give and take in the interaction. The material we've looked at basically concludes that, at its best, what we've called chivalry is really just about showing respect for people as individuals, full stop.
Okay, so pulling it all together then. It sounds like the original version of chivalry, the maybe more rigid knightly code version, that might be past its sell-by date. But the basic ingredients, respect, being courteous, kindness, those things are still super valuable in how we treat each other if they come from a place of real equality.
Exactly. That's the critical evolution, isn't it? How we understand these things and how we act them out. Instead of seeing them as like fulfilling some dusty old gender script,
Right.
the goal should be for them to be genuine expressions of mutual respect between equals.
This whole deep dive, it's really made me pause and think about my own interactions, you know? When I do something kind, what's really driving it? Is it genuinely about equality, or am I sometimes, maybe without thinking, just falling back into old patterns? It's definitely something for all of us to chew on in our daily lives.
Absolutely.
What about you listening right now? What part of this discussion really clicked with you or maybe challenged you, something to think about?